Welcome to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell, and we are doing part 3 of our special Power of Sound series, and I am with the remarkable Ann-Marie Boudreau. Welcome back, Ann-Marie.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's wonderful to be here with you again.
Anne-Marie is a classical concert pianist, a multi-instrumentalist, intuitive improvisational vocalist, a sound doula, Reiki master, composer, educator, and a compassionate bedside practitioner. Her work spans decades and continents. She studied in Eastern Indian music in Chennai, I hope I said that right,
Chennai. Yes.
Chennai, to bring healthy sounds, healing sounds to hospices, hospitals, spiritual communities, and palliative care settings. She has dedicated her life to exploring how sound moves through the body, how voice becomes a pathway to spiritual opening, and how vibration, breath, and resonance can awaken profound healing. Through intuitive voice work, her sound journeys, and her deep listening practice, Anne-Marie understands something that is both ancient and essential. That is, when we engage our voice, our true, unfiltered sound, we reconnect with the whole of ourselves. We harmonize body, mind, heart, and spirit. This is a way that we can come home. So I'm honored to have Anne-Marie here today to help us explore a deeper topic that is the synesthetic experience throughout life. How sound, color, sensation, memory, and intuition blend to shape our human journey. All right. I'm so excited for this part of the conversation because we really start to get into the nitty-gritty of what healing is and wellness. So thank you for taking this journey. And I'm going to ask you to share what tea you brought today to this conversation so we can get everybody started on their healing journey while they listen.
I brought orange spice in my Gustav Klimt cup, so lots of color to the party.
Oh, and it's such a beautiful cup. So for those that can't see it, number one, it's shimmering, but it's got gold flecks and just beautiful shapes and colors surrounding it. Beautiful. And orange brightens us, lightens up our day, and lifts our hearts. Such a great addition for people. And sometimes it's, when you pop that orange and you go to peel the skin off, just that first hint of the smell that just makes us smile. Yeah, I'm seeing that as you were sipping away and smelling. So I've brought to the table today, I'm going to be sipping on Kitchen Party, which is our third blend in the Natalie McMaster set. And this tea is a purple color. Today it's a deep purpley pink color. Depends always how it gets mixed, but it invites mystery, imagination, intuition, and joyful expression. And the purple tea reminds us that our senses are portals. Each one offers a different doorway into our experience, and perfect for today's exploration of synesthetic living, where sound, color, emotion, memory, and sensation are going to weave in and out of a unified fabric. So before we sip, let's connect to the spiritual essence of these two teas, bringing the beautiful ingredients forward. And I'm going to highlight today blue cornflower petals and hawthorn fruit. So blue cornflower petals carry the energy of the third eye. So this is where our intuition, sight, and expanded perceptions can come from. And the tea supports heightened imagination, inner vision, the ability to sense and interpret subtle energy, perceiving layers of experience at once. So that's the essence of synesthesia, and clarity of perspective. And the cornflower invites us to not just see with our eyes, but with the inner lens that blends all of those pieces together. And if we bring out the hawthorn fruit, it's a heart integration and emotional intelligence. Hawthorn is known as the heart medicine. It's not just physically, but it's emotionally and spiritually connecting for us. It provides an emotional coherence, a deep feeling without being overwhelmed, health in our energetic boundaries, compassion, empathy, and connection. It also is the integration of our heart's wisdom with sensory experience. What we experience through those senses, the heart knows what to do with it. So Hawthorn helps us feel the sound, feel color, feel the experience from the heart, and allowing the synesthesia to become a healing pathway rather than an overstimulating one. So if we put the two together, we end up with this union of perception and heart wisdom, the intuition guided by compassion, and sensation that is grounded in presence. And the affirmation that comes with this tea is lift your spirits by connecting music and friends in celebration. And so often, we get together to have a conversation, but we're kind of serious about it. And I'm sure when, Anne-Marie, when you're visiting with friends and things, you've got the music right next to you. So easy to go over and grab a crystal bowl or shimmer on something, and, just how it can be added to the conversation. And that's what I want you, the listeners, to think about as we're going forward is, in what way do you bring all of these synesthesia ideas into a conversation or an exchange with one-on-one or in a group? So let's sip on the tea so we can get the healing started and dive into our conversation. So I'd like you to look at the color of the tea that you may have chosen. What color is yours, actually?
Mine's a golden orange.
Okay, yeah, sunshine. All right, and for those listening, maybe you've got water which doesn't have necessarily a color, but as you look through the water, what colors do you see? And start to bring that forward. What emotion is evoked just by looking at the color? So I know as soon as I even think about kitchen party tea, I'm already thinking about the party. I'm thinking about the music. I'm thinking about the movement, and that immediately is joy. And for you, Anne-Marie, how about with the orange?
The orange, it's that little spicy kick that adds some flavor and boost. It's like a little celebration of fireworks and streamers going off in my mouth and through my body.
See, isn't that fun?
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, so you led to what are the textures and sounds that the tea might remind you of, and you took us right there. And next you want to go to the scent, noticing what it smells like and how that might paint stories as well. Oh my goodness. I think it's because I drew out those cornflower petals. It has a slightly different smell to it, which is just really... was thinking of the palette of colors. It's like I can see the painting coming out, similar to what's on your cup, actually. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. And then you might want to take and hum or create a vowel sound gently within the chest, and then let that vibration blend with the color that you're seeing. So I just invite you to make a sound to go with your tea. So allow the flavors to move across your tongue as you take your sip. Let the color, the taste, the memory, the emotions, and the sound just kind of merge into one cohesive moment. And then set your intention. So this warm presence of hawthorn is going to steady the heart, gentle clarity of cornflower expanding the mind, the spiciness of the orange brightening up everything around you. What intention do you have as you listen to this podcast and dive into sound? And what do you have that you want to expand upon for your day or your week? And now we are fully ready to step into today's conversation.
Thank you for that, Michelle.
It's always nice to be reminded to come back to those senses and go, oh, you are there. It's not just my sense of touch, or it's not just my eyes doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Exactly.
so as we explore the synesthetic experience of life, the layered experiences where the senses overlap and inform each other, how do you how would you define synesthesia from a sound healer's perspective?
Well, let me go back to sort of the original where it came out and where we all first experienced it. Um, our first sense to develop in the mother's womb is the hearing, the auditory sense. And so that is actually the first one that comes forward for us. So if we go back to looking at the experience of a young baby, this gives us sort of a guide as to maybe how to think about synesthesia. Because a young baby, when it comes out of the womb, they have no understanding of the different senses. They cannot distinguish between taste or smell, touch, hearing, sight. For the baby, the senses are all merged together, creating a big soup of sensation that the baby swims around in. So it's only as the child grows and is taught about the distinction between the senses that they understand that they are very separate experiences.
Mm.
So if we think of synesthesia in a young child, it's that blending of the senses that all come through. But in actual fact, physically, it's the oral sense, it's our hearing that develops first.
Interesting. It's so, we do start from that wholeness, because I'm thinking of, as we learn to walk, as we learn to kick a soccer ball, we break everything down into smaller parts to develop a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And it never even occurred to me that the senses were the same in that capacity. So it's really interesting to think about, what does the baby experience? We
Mm-hmm.
pick them up to hold them. What are those sensations when they're seen on whole rather than individually? It's
Exactly.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the tea ritual really provides us with a way to kind of get back to that wholeness as we're bringing
Yes, it
that in.
does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, just to give a little bit of another example, some people may continue to experience synesthetic conditions even as they grow older. And this is where the stimulation of one sense sort of triggers an involuntary experience in another sense or cognitive pathway, basically. So, for example, chromesthesia is association between the sense of sound and sight, color. So people with chromesthesia may associate a sound like the sound of a trumpet and may associate it with the color, so perhaps orange. So for them, the trumpet sounds orange. So that's a kind of connection that might help. Another very simple one when I think about it is the sense of smell. Is if you've had a smell memory that can bring you right back into your grandmother's kitchen when she made those wonderful cookies that you like. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where those senses can start to blend and work together and weave together as well. Um, but for our purposes today, I'm really referring to the overall senses and in this is inclusive of our sixth sense, our intuition. So I'd like us to think of how they all work together to influence and affect our overall well being.
Wow.
Because so often what we do is we dull our senses down in order to block out the white noise that we live in. And whether it's traffic outside the window, whether it's the city lights flashing around us, or eating a food we don't like, sometimes we keep our senses turned off automatically. So that means a lot of the time we may not be living a fully sensual life. We may not be using all of our senses at all. We may be cut off from them. And so it's important to become aware of what is it that I've actually cut off before you start to expand and start being inclusive. of what you do want to sense and what you do want to feel, how you want to include them back in your life again. So what is it that you've dulled down? What sense have you sort of blocked out because of the white noise? It's a good question to check in.
It is, because you have to really stop to think about that, and kind of as you go through your day, notice where one might pop in more than another. Yeah, really interesting. I'm thinking also, and you and I didn't talk about this, but as hearing is the last of this senses as well, as
Yes.
you're passing away, that's the last one to be there. Do you get a sense that we kind of return back to that wholeness as the body is closing down, or is it just that that's the last kind of hint?
I can't truly speak for that because I have not been in the death throes myself. All I know is what I've experienced or heard others share about their experiences. And a lot of times the world does narrow down to just the physical senses. Everything outside of that room starts to fade, to lose connection with, and it just becomes the focus is on the body and what's happening. And it could be any number of things going on with the health as it starts to deteriorate further. But I know that for a lot of the palliative care patients that I have worked with, sound has been a way to soothe and to calm, very much so. And a lot of times when patients are able to still engage that way and talk, they're very eager to be able to talk with someone who is open to hearing about the death process, about supporting someone through that. Because it can be a very frightening topic for many people to even speak about. So to be able to sit and hear, and to hear their words, their story, their journey, and then to be able to support them with sounds that soothe, that caress, that calm. It's truly a very vulnerable time in their lives, and it's such an incredible honor and a very precious time to share with someone moving through their death.
Beautiful. I'm thinking about preschool kids now, and thinking about how they engage and the kinds of conversations we create that creates that separation. So if people are listening and they're parents of young children, being cognizant of what is the languaging that I'm using, or in what way do I ask my child to notice or be present with, or even how we, that the hurriness where we say, hurry up, you're too slow, you need to go faster, where we create that idea that we need to be moving in a much quicker way. And is that, how we pull them from that wholeness of really being sensory present? Because when they're playing with their toys, they are completely sensory present. They know where they are. But then at some point, how do we pull them from that? Yeah. And do you have anything you want to add to that observation or idea?
The first thing that pops in my head is like, there's got to be a reward system involved for a kid to leave what they really love. But oftentimes that isn't feasible. But but if you approach a child instead of barking at them, saying, put that down, stop doing that, we gotta go, get your jacket on. Instead, making it a different kind of system. We're going to get to go out now. Come on, let's get, how do you approach it? How do you talk to them? How do you woo them away from that which has got their focus completely? So trying to do it in a way that speaks positively to yet another exciting experience in their life that's coming up now. Oh, this can be as exciting as that. So how we approach and how we use our words with children, I think is what kids pick up on, because they are little monkeys, the monkey see, monkey do. They pick up on everything. And so how we approach, how we speak, how we talk, they understand what's going on underneath the surface. They have sometimes a more clear connection with their intuitions than adults do as well.
Yeah.
So never underestimate children. They can understand pretty deeply sometimes. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about, just the news this week has been about, how much time should they be in front of the computer or a screen. But from a synesthesia perspective, we are engaging their eyes. We might be engaging their ears and sound, but likely not. And then we've got touch. But taste and smell are left behind in that process.
Unless they're hungry.
Unless they're hungry, exactly. They can smell the cookies in the kitchen.
There we go. Then they become cookie monsters.
But you can get a sense, even for in our own lives, how taste and smell really disappear and get overpowered by those other senses. And we might bring them back if we go to do cooking in the kitchen. But I was joking last night as I was throwing everything into the hot air fryer and putting it in there, and it's like I don't have to do anything, and in 20 minutes, presto, but gone is, stirring the pot and smelling it. Did I put enough seasoning in? What does it taste like? Is it going to be the right taste we want for the meal tonight? Like, gone is that part of the experience of the cooking. And so that just came to mind as we're thinking about how different senses are predominating and the other ones are pulling back, or where we might totally miss out altogether for those people that don't have a sense of smell. Very often then taste disappears as well. Yeah.
But it also shows us how much our mind controls the main part of our day. Rather than being more feeling oriented or sense. The mind is controlling that sight, the story on the screen, whatever is happening in front of us, keeping our fingers going and typing, etc. So really it is our mind that's moving us, and how do we sort of slow down, calm the mind, and slip from the mind down into the heart, which is a feeling-based place, and where we open to our senses, I think, much more fully as well.
And as I was chatting with someone else this morning, that sense of smell of essential oils, or having the tea or the coffee ready, and that smell that's coming up, and maybe we think that the important part is sipping on the coffee, but it might not be. It might be the smell that just fills us up and gets us coming alive. Has nothing to do with the sipping. And for lots of people, I'm sure too, sometimes that half cup still sits there, never gets finished. But it fulfilled that piece of waking up our senses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. So you are experiencing that synesthesia through sound, voice, rhythm, intuitive perception. Do you want to share a little bit about what that means for the way you're working with the senses?
Sure. I tend to explore a lot of my own senses through the creative arts. That seems to be a pathway for me that opens up the senses, because whether I'm get my hands in a bunch of clay, because I work with clay sometimes, whether I'm working with color and choosing wonderful things to put on my canvases as I work with mandalas, or whether it's, singing to a group and getting them involved in whatever I'm playing at. It seems to be through this creative pathway that opens up the passion, the love, and the heart. Because when we're steeped in that, we are more aware of our senses, and we can connect with more synesthetic experiences as well. But there are different types of things that I have done when working with clients. One of the main ones was dementia patients. And something, this is probably something many people have heard as well, that singing songs that were familiar with the patients when they were younger tends to calm them down, and in a way, sometimes they can find the words and start singing along again. My father lived with dementia and turned into Alzheimer's the last 10 years of his life. And I lived in a different country, so it was often very hard to figure out if I was actually connecting with him or not. And so I would call on the phone, and I knew that through our lives together, he loved singing Irish songs. So I would sing an Irish tune on the phone when I would call, and he would know who I was. You're that one. You're the one who sings. I know that. I know you. He knew who was on the phone. He got it. And I loved that part. And so sometimes I would get a call from my mother or my sister who was supporting them through their last years. I would get a call and they'd say, your father's in a really terrible mood, or dad's in a bad place right now. Can you sing to him? So they would put him on the phone and I would start singing, and immediately he would start singing along with me, and his whole demeanor and mood would change. And they sort of, at the end of the call, they'd say, thank you for that. It's really helped us out. You have no idea.
And I feel better too.
Yes, yes. So making those connections for people who are lost in the world of dementia, music is such a wonderful gift and a way of helping them connect with themselves as well as their own history. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Another interesting experience I had when I was younger and when I was teaching piano, I actually taught a blind piano student. Of course, she did not have the sense of sight. So how could she learn piano? Well, her heightened senses started to compensate for that. And so feeling became a very important sense for her. So when she was working her way across the keyboard, she could feel for the black notes, groups of threes and groups of twos, for anyone who knows a keyboard. And so she could feel those and feel where the notes would be. And of course her oral sense, her sense of hearing, came very much into play. And so I would actually make cassettes back in the days when it was cassettes. I would make cassettes for her that actually dictated every single note and where they were found on the piano, and then I would play that. So she would have the dictation and know where to figure out where it was by sense of feel on the keyboard, and then she'd have the notes by sound as well. So that was a way where, we may in our futures lose some of our senses, and so how do they compensate? How do the other senses compensate in our world to help out? And you'd be amazed at what people can do, even with that sense of loss of sense. Yeah.
Well, and too, is it really a loss? Because sometimes you go, I had no idea I could do that. And then it's such an incredible discovery.
Yes, yes.
And I'm just thinking, as I had my frozen shoulder for the last few months, I had to move everything I couldn't even put my right hand up onto the keyboard. Oh, dear. So it was left hand. Well, I can easily, I type both hands easily, but my right hand could take over, no problem. But the left hand, that was a whole other story. But then it was jars and door handles and clothes and all these different ways of moving. But that's a different access to the brain, different awareness of what you're doing. You slow down a little bit. You're a little bit more present with everything. And I really discovered a lot of cool things, bringing those two kind of back together. So the right's not so dominant and the left really has a voice. And we don't usually, we're thinking touch. What is the sensation? But you have that right and left as well, which also then changes what the brain is paying attention to.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That's amazing. Amazing, isn't it?
Well, it was one of those things where I've got to find the silver lining. In this little challenge that I have, yeah. Um, but
But it forces you into that situation, and you can choose to either step back from it or step into it and embrace it in a new way, which
hmm
is what you did.
hmm
So kudos to you for
hmm
finding that new way.
I don't
And
recommend it
there,
to people.
of
Keep old
course,
shoulders intact. Oh my goodness.
absolutely. There are also, I was going to say, there are also different types of schools out there in the world, and different communities that are more aware of synesthesia and synesthetic experiences. So I had mentioned in one of the other podcasts, Fabien Mamin, he actually began a school called the Tamado Academy. And it is an academy that studies and weaves together sound, color, and movement. So bringing these healing arts together in the one school. And that is to really wake up that light within us, each of us.
Hmm.
So one of his quotes are, "Everything we know comes from the light. We are all starlight. And because we are divine in nature, we are just beginning to remember."
Mm.
Some words from Fabien Mamin.
I'm just beginning to remember. I think we think we have all the answers, but when we really stop to listen, what have we forgotten? Yeah.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. I was also fortunate enough to visit a self-sustained community called Damanor in northern Italy. It's just west of Milan, um, and the community was brought together specifically to focus on the intuitive and the creative arts, because the founder felt that this is the birthplace of where new ideas come forth. And when we do have new ideas come forth, those ideas may be ones that help heal ourselves and to help heal our world. So it's through that exploration that we actually can start to birth new intuitive ideas into the world.
I am jealous because I have seen the Temple of Humankind in pictures. Did you get a chance to see the temple?
Yes, I actually connected with some other sound therapists before I went over, and so I ended up um, being able to go into the temples with them, and we actually were able to have some private time and singing in each of the temples. And it was quite amazing to do, and we had some wonderful musical experiences. And while I was there, there was a musical group from Japan who had brought in this incredible white grand piano, and they toted it around to different sites in Damanor and were doing video shoots, and they did go down into the temples to record as well. And each of the temples of humankind, each one is tuned to different frequencies and has different qualities and characteristics that are part of it. One of the really, really interesting things, I just, small, but I noted it when I think it's the Temple of Earth, there are all these little clay figurines around the bottom near the floor. And so everyone who in Damanor who becomes a new citizen, because it is a federation, you can get a passport and become a citizen. They are invited to make a clay figurine and add it to the temple room. So that space holds energetically all of the citizens who are a part of Damanor.
Wow. Wow. And so for those people that might not have seen the pictures and it's vibrant color, amazing textures. I didn't realize each room had its own tuning, which from an architectural standpoint, first of all, it's a marvel to begin with as for architecture. But the next part about the room being able to hold a pitch is incredible. It's the experience of standing within that pitch must have been incredible.
Yes, and the energy of the rooms. I mean, the shapes of them, the colors, the intent that they had brought into each of the different rooms is amazing. I still remember the one of the first rooms that I went to was considered to be, it's the blue room. It's almost like a womb, and on it are all of these writings. And they said that Falcon, who was the founder and who started the digging to create the temples, he actually understood a variety of different languages, some that he intuited and some that they believe came from beings out on other planets. So they've only managed to decipher so many of those different languages that he was writing on that in that womb, that blue room.
Wow.
And so that is still yet to be understood. He has since passed. But that room and all of his writings, they're still waiting for that to become more clear, to figure out what it is that it says, etc. So he was using and connecting very much with that sixth sense, that sense of intuition, and bringing together all of those elements to create and manifest this incredible space and these temples of humankind. And then, again, it blossomed into the community, that it became above ground, and in how the community works together. It's really quite beautiful to witness and see.
So I'm thinking, as people are listening and they think about their living rooms, their bedrooms, and some, haphazardly how some things go together, and maybe doesn't get cleaned up or stuff's piled in the corner. All of that resonates. All of that could be creating a burden on the senses, but could be dulling the senses. And in what way could you look at these rooms? They might not have the pitch that you could get in Damanhur, but at least you can set it up so that you're resonating with things. And I'm just, you've got all the color in your space, and you've got the wood and the metals and the crystals that are all emanating frequency, sound, color for you. And I always like to have this backdrop here. This room is all blue, so that same idea as the womb. For me, it's the water, and the lights cast like waves across the paint in the evening. So I feel like I'm in the ocean. So creating that space. And so as people are listening, in what way might they be creating space and might not be? And could you be synesthetically really supporting yourself in a better way by thinking about how you've placed some of the things that are in your favorite places to be?
Absolutely. When we live in a space and a place that is pleasing and to the senses, we wake up a little bit more. We live more synesthetically, automatically. I mean, one of the first things, of course, that comes to my mind is take a look and check out some feng shui books. Where to position things, the energy of placing them in that corner as opposed to this corner. So feng shui does play an active part. But the other thing is, look around your home. What things are you drawn to? What things aesthetically please you? What is beauty to you? Draw these together, and then sit with them in that space and find ways to place them, so that becomes the anchors of the aesthetically beautiful space you want to create.
I also have from Damanhur, Italy, the plant machine. So being able to hear my plants sing and bring the frequency out of the plant. And that's where my passion for the tea and the power of the herbs, when you can hear an herb sing and the voice that it has, that just lit me up. So that's my little connection to Damanhur. And I love to have that singing in the room for me and hearing the messages that the plants have. So they're singing, we can't hear them, some people, my grandmother would say, you know, those were her little people, and she would talk to them all day long, and they grew incredibly. They loved her. And my mother on the other side would say, I kill plants. And so that's about where she was at. So it was always, you know, rubber plants in our house. But this opportunity to realize that even though we can't hear things or we might not see it, doesn't mean it's not there. And the senses are picking it up even when we're not aware of its presence.
Absolutely, absolutely. And lovely that you brought that up. That was the fact that they did create a little machine that connects to the electrical impulses of a plant. They actually had in Damanor, when I was there, some huge fields that were covered in different colored stones, and they were huge labyrinths that you could walk around. And in one of them, they had this huge mother tree, and they had the electrodes connected to that, and so they had the music of the tree playing while we were doing the meditative walks in the labyrinth. It was really quite an incredible experience to have. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of
That little piece.
Plants.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite amazing.
Well, and two, right? You mentioned the color of the rocks. Then you have the labyrinth, and you have the frequency within the labyrinth. Those stones aren't just placed; they're very strategically set up. They do create a frequency. Again, we can't hear that frequency, but it's present. We might be able to sense the calmness of it as a different way of knowing. But yeah, oh, beautiful. Okay, so now that we're basking in that, I think people are getting a sense for how much is present, how much we can pay attention to, where we can go with it. And can we move our conversation a little bit into the neurological condition, what we see more as gifts that humans often suppress, and how, I think we kind of touched on it in this last little bit of the conversation, but how can we have this synesthetic sense that reawakens things within us? Can you share a little maybe of some of your stories or experience with people as they start to discover parts of themselves or parts of experience?
I think one of the things that I've seen in when working with clients, that when one of their senses is opened, it's because they've shifted or moved a lot of the emotion, the heaviness that has been sitting under or pressing on their heart, such as grieving, which is a huge one for most of us. So when heavy things are shifted emotionally and we feel that lightening, it automatically, the world has a certain sparkle. The sun looks sunnier today. There's a little bit more bounce to your step. Oh, I think I will have that extra treat today, or whatever it is, So when we actually take care of ourselves holistically and make sure that all of us is doing well, so our heart is doing well, how we're feeling inside, we're taking stock of ourselves, we're taking stock of how we are in the internal plane, and that completely affects how we move in the sensual, or the plane of the senses as well, and how much we open to them as well. So let's see, when I work with the senses, through my day as well, it's like, how do I experience my day? So when I'm sitting down to eat, am I looking at my phone, rushing through the meal, thinking about the list of things I've got to do for the day, or am I actually picking up that fork and eating and tasting? Am I smelling the food? Do we fully engage? Just as you did with the whole tea ceremony at the beginning of our session today. Do we take that time when we're eating? Do we feel it with our hands? What are we paying attention to? Even just walking outside, are we seeing the color of the sky? Are we seeing the leaves on the trees? Are we feeling, or sensing the crunch of the leaves under our feet if it's in the fall? So how much are we engaging with our life around us? And how much are we just living in this little pocket in our mind and focused with blinders on as we trek through our day? So part of it is really allowing yourself to open up to that full life experience. And then, of course, there are some types of experiences that are created that help us move into more of a synesthetic experience. Such as I was working with two gentlemen a few years ago who wanted to create on purpose a huge synesthetic experience that involved all of the senses. And that included making sound, that included journeying through the sound, allowing the sound to transform and shift us, and then moving over to another part of the room. There were huge sheets of paper were laid out with paints, and we could paint, and all the ideas and intuitions and images that came to us in colors, we got to paint out as well. And then we would go afterwards and eat together at communal food that we had brought. Very consciously we would share and talk about the ideas that came up, and it was a stimulation of the senses. And so it became a way to engage more fully with life, to wake everything up, and to step back into the world and bring those awakened senses, those awarenesses with us into the world. And what are we going to do? And how, today, what are we going to choose today to do?
Mm-hmm.
With those awakened senses, and it can really change your experience a lot. And there's usually definitely an integration period of time that you need, because there's having the experience, but if you're not integrating it into your life, if you're not grounding it within yourself, if you're not moving into the practice of doing these things daily, we're not going to develop the muscles to have strong senses. So if you think of, would you go on a cross-country run without any kind of cross-country training? No, of course, you would be out working at it, trying to increase your speed, trying to increase, how long you can run for, those types of things. You're working on developing those muscles. So just like anything else, we need the discipline to work on those muscles, to open to our full senses each day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about Tai Chi practice, and in the Western world here, it's treated like going to exercise class. But where it originates from, it is included with painting, poetry, tea ritual, very specific tea ritual, the community of gathering in the center square for the village, and your feet are on the ground connected to nature, so then you have the sounds of nature around you. So all of that is part of the practice. And I'm just bringing that to the forefront because as we pull out the component that we think is most important, the exercise, and exercise I'll put in quote, because when we try to do it here, we've pulled it from its essence of experience. Yes, it's an exercise, but it would be so much more if we could embody. And yoga, I know, is the same, because it's yes. When people go to study in Thailand or Asia, they're embedded in a practice which is so much more while they're training. And then they come back to the Western world and try to find a way to bring it to the masses who want that 60 minutes of exercise so that they can carry on with their lives. So we really have compartmentalized how we want to have full experience in something like that.
Absolutely, and that's a really important point that you make. Certainly, when I spent my time in India, they live and breathe holistically through their practices, whether they're doing yoga, whether they're meditating, whether they're dancing, singing. It is a very holistic, whole body influenced experience for them. And so, like, as you say, when a Westerner goes over there, they're involved in this holistic experience, but when they come back to the West, they're expected to extraneously take out that little exercise piece, and that's what they're teaching. How do you teach the holistic aspect as well?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the new craze of Tai Chi walking. I'll say it as a Tai Chi craze because depends which video you're going to watch, what it is, but it also depends what it's going to include. And so, as we're talking about going out into the woods, putting your feet on the ground, noticing the colors, being present with nature, you might walk, you might stand, you might get more from just standing and just being completely still and present than if you went for that power walk. That put you through nature, but you just kind of were passing through rather than actually being a part of it.
That reminds me of something that has come up and I've experienced as well, is just grounding. People are now buying these blankets and sheets to put over themselves when they sleep at night just to help them ground and connect with the ground. But simply going outside with your bare feet and standing on the ground is one of the best ways, or just lay down on the ground, and connect with that. There is a whole exchange of energy that's going on between us and the earth all the time, and we don't even realize it sometimes. But grounding can diffuse a lot of the confusion, and if you set the intention of sending that into the earth, Mother Earth knows how to transform energies no matter what they are. And when we ask her to support us, we can feel that beautiful surge of mother energy from the earth come through us as well. And that can ground and settle and quiet us. Which is why I believe, this grounding aspect is really taking off, because we are part of Mother Earth. We all grew up together. We grew on this planet. We are all one, and yet we seem to forget it. We're really good at compartmentalizing rather than learning to live more holistically.
I'm wondering if you have a little exercise you'd like to take us through, just to bring some of the healing sound in, and as you had commented about the experience of the heart, lightening up the heart, being able to open, and then those emotions have flowed, and then how much more aware we are. I would love for people to kind of get a feeling for what that would be.
Let's see. One that I probably would use only because there's a lot of information out there on the website about this is working with the Bija mantras. Because not only do they work with the sound, the Sanskrit, which has its own particular energy, they're working with different parts of the body, different energy centers through the body, and each of them are connected with different notes, but also with different colors. So while you're toning and working with, say, your root chakra, you're working with the Bija mantra LAM, L-A-M. And so if you think of that humming exercise we did in the last podcast, you're allowing your hum to go down deeply into your belly and send the intention of connecting with that root chakra, and start to bring the image of red, the color red, into your mind as you're sounding. Therefore, you're working intuitively. You're opening to the sense of the sound, the vibration, how effective it's having on your body, as well as opening up the color, the sense of sight as well. there was an experience I remember in the sound therapy college where I studied, where we had a synesthetic evening, and we had people come in and lay down on massage tables, and then we would actually work with the chakras. We would sound them as a group around the person, and we would actually have different colored lights in the room shining on the person as well, and really help them zone in on each of the chakras and energizing them and helping them to grow. And so they would be encouraged to sound on the inside as well, of course, because you're just exponentially strengthening the vibration. So it was a wonderful experience to have people come in and do. You don't have to make it as extravagant for yourself, but you can take a look up online and put in Bija mantras and see what they are and what colors and what notes are connected with them. And that would bring a little bit of a synesthetic experience to the individual.
And can you just spell that?
Bija mantra, B-I-J-A.
There we go.
M-A-N-T-R-A-S. Yeah, Bija mantras.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
You'd be gifting yourself as well at the same time, because you would be working on your energy centers of your body, and when they are more balanced, you feel a revitalization of your own energy as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a gift you can give to yourself.
Which we all need to take that time and bring that forward in a better way. I'm just noticing the sun is slowly setting. I'm moving into the dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you and I live in a different part of the country, even though you're only an hour away.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go ahead?
Mm-hmm. Finish what you're going to say first.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wanted to mention last year when I actually met you, you had been putting together a wonderful synesthetic experience, and I came up and talked with you afterwards and noted that, oh, this is a very cool synesthetic experience, and we started, moving into that conversation very quickly. But I was so impressed with what you drew together, and I wondered if you'd maybe describe a little bit of that experience and how that came together for you, and how it was followed through with, how you presented it. I think the listeners would be very interested in that. I was.
I would be happy to share that. So with movement, we often have music. And we usually associate dance and music, but Tai Chi has been brought to the Western world that you don't have music. And I believe it's because they used to be outside in nature. So you wouldn't require music. Nature would be providing all of the frequencies, but we're more inside. And so what I started to notice with musicians is some musicians, they had this feeling, this emotion that would come up in the music. Now, in Cape Breton here, Celtic music has a huge uplift that happens, but different players have a different way. And so I started to explore, what did it mean if we started to play more from our heart than just from our memory? And so we do have memory of tunes, and in Celtic music, you can get into it. If it's in a certain key, the whole room can kind of cheer when it moves to the next key. But what I wanted to experience is what would happen if a musician was to play with emotion based on color. And I started with the 5-element paintings, which I had my son and my daughter-in-law create for me. And one tune played to a different color significantly changed as the colors changed, which was really interesting. And so I thought, what would it be like if we were able to engage an artist with a musician so that the musician could hear why the artist painted a certain painting? And in this case, we were working with Doug Fraser's paintings, which are all how the light is on the water. And he's devoted all of his painting to watching light. And then taking and having a musician hear the story of why he painted the way he did, what was included, and then have the musician play to that piece of art. So what is the interpretation that comes from it? It could be a tune that is familiar, but most often than not, it then moves into something that just comes right out of the heart and just is intuitively played. So your experience was to be able to come and have, I can't remember if there's five paintings on the stage, and then different musicians engaged with the different paintings and see what it produced, but also we had different instruments. And then we added the tea. Mm-hmm. And the understanding I had was tea's important. And I was adding it because it's lovely to have that flavor. But on the very first concert that we did, we sat in at the Cape Breton University's archives for all of the Celtic music. And I wanted to be in the archives so that the musicians who had pulled their music out of there and brought it alive could actually be sitting in the history. And then people would be able to sit and listen. And I offered up a tea for the first section. And then I stepped back and I went to the back of the hall and I was just listening to everything that was going on. And I was observing, not really intentionally, what was happening to people listening. And so they started with their posture kind of back in the chair and their head was tilted to one side as they were listening, and they weren't really responding to the music all that much. But as we progressed through the concert, they started to fidget in their seats, and then they started to sit up more, and then they were getting taller, and then the head started to go straight. And it was an interesting wave that kind of came through. So I just, again, it's still not really comprehending what I'm watching. I'm seeing it, but I'm not really observing it. So from the perspective of a scientist, but I gave the last tea, and I don't remember what it was, but I talked about the color that went with it and everything. And everyone was, oh, this is lovely tea, and sipped on it and everything. And at the end of the concert, everyone was sitting up straight with their feet on the floor, and they were rocking to the music. So there wasn't anybody that was still back in their seat waiting to be entertained. They had absorbed all of the sound into their body. And so the journey that you were able to do was the second year of taking that little observation and knowledge and then putting it into a new package and exploring again the music and the movement. And since that time, I've taken the we called it Movement and Music, taking that into an online class and added an artist who paints the experience of what she's sensing, because she can't see us while her back is to us and she's painting, but she's sensing what the music and the movement is doing. And we've added photographs of nature to bring nature in. We've added the herbs, intention, and creating a whole experience for people. And it's interesting because they come because they want an exercise class. There's that exercise piece again, but they have this synesthesia experience. And what do they talk about? They talk about the color, the art, the sounds that they heard, how it felt to be present with it. And whatever I happen to do with movement really isn't relevant because of this whole experience that they've been able to bring in. So across 3 years, we've really developed a way for the arts to be encompassing and a part of it. So thank you for letting me share that, because it's been an interesting journey from a leader perspective, and sharing movement that way. But movement for me is it's poetry. And it's poetry if there's no music, but it's really poetry when there's music and color and everybody's a part of it. So yeah.
Well, it was a wonderful synesthetic experience to attend and to experience within myself. So thank you very much for pulling that together, and that definitely drew me to you. And I thought, I need to get to know this person more. She's doing some very interesting work.
We've got to dive in and live life fully, right? Just
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right. So with that, Could we dive into a little bit of your experience with deep meditations, maybe some grief work or trauma release, so people can get a sense of how this work, as much as it's fun for me to do tea, musicians play for art, what does this work provide for those people who really do have a block and they just can't seem to move out of that?
When I'm working with sound, I find it one of the quickest ways to dive into deep emotions. Sound moves beneath the world of words, and it moves directly to a place of feeling response. And so very quickly, just if I'm working with a client who's experiencing a lot of grief and needs to allow that grief to be expressed, I would work with probably an instrument like my Shruti box, and I would allow my voice to go into grieving. And so I become this reflective mirror of where the person is actually sitting. And in that experience of reflecting where they're sitting, the tears come, the tears flow. But if you sit long enough and wait, you realize it comes to a place where, okay, it's fading, it's lessening, and they're coming to the end of the full rapids that were happening of tears. It's now becoming a little bit more of a drizzle. And so you shift to bring them back into the surface world, as I call it, or the topside world, and to bring them back with comfort. So shifting to a lullaby, to woo them back to that top place. When you're sitting and talking with them after, they're usually amazed at how quickly they dived into and went to that place of tears, and how quickly they came forward for them. But like I said, music has a tendency to slip beneath the world of words into a very deep healing place. And so when I'm working with people who are feeling a lot of anxiety and fear, certainly at the bedside, in palliative care and hospice work, there's incredibly heightened emotions at that place and that time of life. And so working with them as well to allow them to say the words that they need to express themselves, and then to allow themselves to sink into whatever those feelings are. It allows them and gives them the honor and the respect it deserves, but also the release that they need in order to be free to depart this world. So music can help us sit and move through very deep emotion and very deep places. One of the most beautiful things that I learned about Indian and East Indian music was that they have been working with their music prescriptively for about 3,000 years. So they really have it under wraps. They know what they're doing. Their music is organized into different emotional silos, and each of those has ragas or scales, musical scales connected with it. And the pieces or ragas are created out of those different scales. So when you actually go to a guru, you'd say, I'm feeling depressed and I've had this pressing on my heart for a long time. They would say, listen to this raga at this time of day for so many weeks, and then come back and we'll talk some more. And usually the person does go home. They'll sit and listen to that raga. And so what they're being invited to do is to sit with that emotion, to make friends with it, to be okay with it, to bring themselves back into balance. So it's sitting with that emotion, making a connection with it that allows us to step away and continue moving on with our lives sometimes. So I love how India uses music prescriptively that way.
And isn't it interesting that that's 3,000 years old?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you look at modern medicine, putting that in quotes for those people listening, it's a couple hundred years old. Mm-hmm. For 3,000 years, they've understood the power of the sound and the healing. And in our Western world, we're just coming around to maybe it would be important, or we know that music lifts us up. It's really incredible. Plus the system that they have in place for, as you were describing, those sounds for each of the chakras or energy centers, and the way the toning comes together. Yeah. Beautiful. As people are going to go about their day, they've listened to this trilogy, they've been exposed to all different kinds of ideas. What could you suggest for them in their daily routine that they might just add that one little piece that's going to start to shift and wake them up?
Okay, there are three little words that I tend to fall back on a lot because I've used them a lot in my own life to encourage myself to keep going. And that is from Joseph Campbell, who was an American anthropologist, and he quoted to quote, "Follow your bliss. Choose one thing each day that you can follow your bliss on. Whether it's something you want to eat, or whether you want to listen to, whether it's something a beautiful something you want to see or experience, but follow your bliss and invite at least one little thread of creative passion into your life each day."
Beautiful, beautiful. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming or hard, or you have to take a lesson, or you need to know how to sing. It's just move it, that one little piece. And if you kind of get to the end of your day and you realize you haven't actually done anything for bliss yet, then, just add that little piece in before bedtime and just bring yourself into that frequency.
We're treating ourselves, and how often do we actually pay attention to ourselves? Sometimes we're so busy with our agendas and fixing or what we need to in our worlds, or filling other people's expectations, that we forget completely about, what about myself? Where do I figure in all of this? And so if you have gotten to the end of the day and you haven't followed your bliss in any way, it's definitely time to give yourself the treat of that.
This will be the end of our trilogy talk. But we're going to do an extra episode, so I just want to invite people to look for this when it comes out. We're going to do an extra episode with Ann Smets, who is talking about spirituality, and so much of what we've talked about today is overlapping with some of the conversation that her and I have had too. And so we're going to have the three of us come together and bring all of that around into some ideas that people can take forward. And our goal with all of this is, one, is awakening about information, but two, is about getting you to engage, you the listener, to engage in changing the way you're thinking about your day, how you're living your life, and how you're making your choices. Because at the end of the day, it's those choices that either send us to wellness or send us into some dis-ease. And what we want to do is find that way into the wellness, so that it's an easy journey always up into those frequencies, rather than dropping out because we haven't been able to cope with the way our day has gone, or the way that we've been living or making choices. And we're hoping that this conversation now brings you around to, yes, to sound and sound for healing, but also the way that the senses are going to be able to come together, because they have a significant role in our well-being. And we want you to find that. And we want you to be embodied within it, and to be able to experience it. And as I'm thinking about Damanhur, being able to go into one of the temples and just being completely surrounded, it reminds me of actually the Van Gogh exhibit that came around, where you could get into the painting and standing within the art. And I had bought the vase, which was on a canvas, just like a flag or something like that. but I actually put it on the ground and just stood in it when I got home because I just wanted to capture again what was it like to stand in that color. And it's so powerful. The body relaxes in different ways and engages. So I'm hoping that we've inspired you, the listeners, to really consider how things could be different as we head into 2026 and we bring about those new ideas for where we want to go. And some of the inspirations, as they're saying, we've got 3 years here where we are in a transformation and we're at the start of that transformation. What happens if all those senses can come alive? And in 3 years' time, where will you be? Because you started to make those shifts. So, anything you want to add?
Yes, actually. Just something to note, and you can look it up online. Sound and color are hold the two highest frequencies in the world. So working with sound and color are pretty up there. I'd put them on your list if I could and make them a priority to explore in whatever way, shape, or form speaks to you.
Exactly. And when you start to think sound and color and you think, where have I included that in my day? In our house, people come over and they go, wow, you guys really like color. And sometimes we've had to take a picture and I don't have a white wall because every room has a color. And it's like, yeah, we don't have any white. And other people are like, well, we have all white, but color doesn't exist in our house. So just to be able to think, how are you bringing that color into your life? And you're wearing it, you're sitting in it, standing on it.
Eating it,
drinking, sipping, so many ways.
Absolutely.
This has been a wonderful journey, Ann-Marie, to really dive into the sound and its full impact because it's well beyond sound. And I so appreciate it. You and I have 2 retreats coming up. So as people are listening to this podcast in January, February, March, we are offering an in-person experience of retreats that people can look up at thegreenwellcenter.com if they want to check it out and register to come and join us. And then at the end of August, we have a 8-day retreat that we'll be offering on Cape Breton Island, immersing in the music and the culture here, but also immersing in sound I want to say explosions is what was trying to come out, excursion, and weaving that through with the art and the movement. And we have musicians coming from around the world. So we're really creating a unique way for people to be involved in the arts and in sound. And we invite you to be a part of that. Ann-Marie, I know they can find some of your things on your YouTube channel. Do you want to just share how they can find you?
Yes, actually, my YouTube channel, which again has my first and my second CD on it, as well as a short video of when I was working in a home care situation and I was doing a big presentation. So there's a video of that as well. But the site is Ann-Marie Boudreau 8570. And again, you'll find my first CD, Dreams of Ancient Lands, which I was encouraged to record by the Peruvian shaman that I spoke about in the last podcast. And it has my second CD, which was encouraged actually by Joseph Campbell's talk about the hero's journey. It inspired me to create music for that journey. And so New Horizon is the second CD. That's all on YouTube. I do actually tend to teach a 4-day sound retreat called Transcended Sound at the Dharma Center of Canada in Ontario every spring as well. So that information you can find under the Dharma Center of Canada, their event sites as well. And it'll have a bit more of a biography, etc. on me too. And I work with Canadian composer Stephen Gelman teaching that retreat each spring. But I'm very, very excited about the new collaboration that I'm working on with you, Michelle, in this spring, in February, March, and again in August. And I'm looking forward to it with much curiosity to see how it all unfolds. And I'll be following my bliss by moving into that with you. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'll be following my bliss too, because I said 2026 is the year of playing in candy, really, for me. Being able to immerse in all of these kinds of topics and find out the joy that comes from them and the way that we can really bring that into our lives. So I'm looking forward to where that takes us. So thank you so much, Ann-Marie, for this journey. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, if you missed the first 2 episodes, please go back and check them out. And then we have other trilogies that have been happening. They're really weaving in and out of each other. So please go and check out some of the other resources and really start to bring some of this to the forefront for what you want to do with your year coming up. And I just want to remind you that when you lift your spirit by connecting music and friends in celebration, you have an opportunity to heal. And with that, I'll give you one last toast. Thank you so much, Ann-Marie.
Thank you, Michelle. It was a real pleasure to be here. And thank you to all of the listeners for taking the time to move through this conversation with us. I look forward to seeing you another time.
Be well, everyone. Take care.